If this story hits somewhere real, drop a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. She started taking her phone into the bathroom at night, not occasionally, every night without exception. The shower would run, the mirror would fog, and that phone would be face down on the bath mat like it had been given its own reserved spot. Not on the counter where you'd naturally set a phone. On the mat, reachable, ready. I noticed it the way you notice a sound that doesn't quite belong. Not alarm, just a low signal in the back of your mind that says, something here has shifted. The first night I actually put words to it, I was at the stove, cast iron pan, chicken thighs, a Tuesday dinner that takes 20 minutes if you don't rush it. She walked through the hallway with her eyes on her screen, thumb scrolling in that absent rhythm that means the hand has learned the motion mi pareja well. The brain stopped supervising it. Turn the heat down, she said without looking. Something's burning. It wasn't burning, it was browning. I let it go. Getting in the shower? I asked. Or are you too exclusive at this point? She didn't take the joke. I'm wiped, Daniel. Can we not? The bathroom door closed. The lock clicked. And that was new because we had never been the kind of couple who locked bathroom doors. The shower started. That was the conversation. If I'd known where that Tuesday was heading, I would have turned the burner off and started packing. But I didn't know. I thought I was married to a tired woman in a hard stretch at work. I thought patience was the right tool. That was my first mistake. Laura and I had been together 6 years, married for 4. We'd met at a work event neither of us wanted to be at, ended up in the same corner of the room doing the same quiet math about how soon we could leave without being rude, and started talking. 3 hours later, the cleaning crew was working around us. That was what she was like in the beginning, completely, specifically present. She remembered the details you dropped in passing. She built a model of you in her head and paid close attention to it. That quality was magnetic. In the early years, we were easy together. Hikes on weekends, drives to the coast in the off-season, movies and the slow, enjoyable argument about them after. We could talk about nothing for hours and it mattered, because that was the whole point. Lately, our conversations had the texture of something she was clearing off a list. I would start something and feel her waiting for the part where she could respond and be done. The phone got the rest. Whatever I was getting was what remained after it had taken its share. That Tuesday night, she ate 4 bites, said something had come up with a new account, and drifted to the bedroom with her plate still in hand. I found it on the dresser an hour later, cold and barely touched. While I stood there, her phone buzzed and she reached for it before the second vibration, eyes on the screen, gone from the room in the way that happens when the phone has what actually matters. Everything okay? I asked. New client, she said, still reading. Very demanding. Please don't take it personally tonight. I'm just trying to hold this one. I said okay and cleaned up by myself. The next morning I made her coffee the way she liked it and tucked a note in her lunch bag. She grabbed the mug without reading the bag, slung it over one shoulder, paused at the door. Dinner out tomorrow. Your pick. Maybe. I'll see how the day goes. She was already halfway through the door. I wasn't suspicious then. What I was patient. That was the mistake. 2 weeks stacked up. She came home late and sat up on the couch like a 2-terminal operation. Laptop on one knee, phone alive beside it, fingers moving between both. I tried the small things. Flowers on a Wednesday. A bad comedy on a Thursday because she used to love the ones that didn't ask anything of you. A day trip planned for Sunday with the route already mapped. Each time, a thread pulled loose from work and unraveled the day before it started. One evening I went direct. Are we good? She didn't look up. Of course. Doesn't feel like of course. I'm tired, Daniel. Don't make this about you. Just asking. Then stop. The laptop screen took her face and I went to the kitchen and found something to do. I cooked more, cleaned after both of us, told myself that when you love someone you carry extra during the hard stretches. I believed that long enough that it started to feel like wisdom. 3 days later I had a gap between noon and 2 and drove to her office with lunch and coffee. No reason except she was having a hard month and I wanted her to have a good 30 minutes in the middle of it. The receptionist told me she was in a meeting. Said it slightly louder than the situation required, like the volume was a message for someone on the other side of a glass wall. I turned. Laura's office had those transparent panels. Through the glass she was standing close to a man in a dark fitted jacket. Their heads were angled toward each other at a distance that wasn't quite right for colleagues. Not dramatic, not something anyone would describe as obvious, but something that registered. He said something. She laughed. Not the polite laugh, not the professional one, the real one, the unguarded one that comes before you've decided whether to let it out. The one I knew from our first summer together. I walked to the door. Laura looked up through the glass, and for half a second her posture stiffened. Then the work smile came on, and she pushed the door open. "Hey, babe. What are you doing here?" "Brought lunch," I said. "And your coffee." Her eyes moved from him to me and back, fast. "We were just finishing up. This is the client I mentioned, the demanding one. Daniel, this is Marcus." The man extended his hand with the ease of someone who does it in rooms like this every day. "Good to meet you." "Same," I said. We ate in her office, or I ate. She moved food around and answered messages in 2-at-a-time bursts. Marcus left with a nod, and I watched the door close behind him. I didn't say what I'd seen. I finished my coffee, told her I had to get back, and kissed her cheek on the way out. On the drive back, I replayed the angle of their heads through the glass, the laugh, the receptionist's volume. My phone buzzed at a red light. "Crazy afternoon," she'd written. "Thank you for lunch, you're sweet. Tonight might run long. Don't wait on dinner." I set the phone down and drove the rest of the way in silence. Something had shifted in me. Not a conclusion yet, just an orientation. I was facing something now. 2 nights later, she came home at 20 minutes to 2 in the morning. I heard the car before she reached the door. Not her car. Different pitch, tighter door seal. I was at the window. A dark sedan at the curb, engine running. Marcus walked around the hood and opened her door. She leaned in and gave him the kind of goodbye that doesn't happen between colleagues. A kiss on his cheek, easy and practiced, no hesitation. She didn't look up at the windows. She walked up our front path like she lived here. Because she did. I was in the hallway when she came upstairs. "Long one," she said, pulling off her heels. "I saw the car." "Don't, Daniel. We stayed late, the whole team. Ashley drove me home. I'm dead on my feet." "Right," I said. "Ashley." She paused 1 beat in the doorway, then shrugged and disappeared into the bathroom with her phone. I lay in the dark for 2 hours and completed the calculation I'd been running for weeks. By the time I fell asleep, the uncertainty was gone. What remained was quieter and colder and more specific. In the morning, I kissed her cheek like always, made coffee, watched her car back out, and then I didn't go to my studio. I drove across town to a side street where a man named Reeves had a small, unremarkable office. He listened to the whole thing without a sympathy face, without any face, just the attentive stillness of someone whose job requires him to hear things without performing a reaction. When I finished, he said, "You want facts, not confirmation of what you already suspect. You want to know what's actually there, mi pareja, you can make a real decision." That's it exactly. He slid a form across the desk. 2 days, maybe less. I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about the terms, the foundational terms of a marriage, the ones no one writes down because they're supposed to go without saying. If she was operating outside them while continuing to perform the inside of them, the coffee in the morning, the hand across the table, the "I'm sorry I've been distracted," then what was happening was a kind of cruelty I hadn't agreed to absorb. That was the part one couldn't carry. Not the betrayal itself, the performance layered on top of it. 48 hours later, Reeves handed me a plain folder. Inside, timestamps, locations, proximity, the parking structure on 5th, 4 evenings across 3 weeks, a hotel exit 3 miles up the interstate, 2 timestamps an hour and 40 minutes apart, doorways, sidewalks, the specific angle of 2 people who have stopped thinking about how they look from the outside. Nothing explicit, nothing that required interpretation. Patterns speak louder than any single frame. He'd also included a name and number he hadn't been asked for. Claire. I looked up at him. His wife, he said, flat as a weather report. She deserves to know what's in that folder. I walked around the block twice with the folder under my arm. On the second pass, I stopped and called the number. She answered on the second ring. A clear, professional hello. Claire, I said. My name is Daniel. I think you're married to a man named Marcus. A pause, waiting. I'm married to a woman named Laura. I think we should talk in person. We met 2 days later at a coffee place with too many light bulbs hanging on wire. Claire was already there when I arrived, seated with her back to the wall and a clear line to the door. She had the composure of someone who had been holding things together long enough that it had become invisible. She looked at me directly. What is this? She asked. I slid the folder across. She read quickly, the way you do when part of you already knows what you're looking for. Her jaw tightened twice. She got halfway through, closed it, opened it again, and stopped on one photograph for a long moment. Like if she waited, it might become something else. He told me he was mentoring a junior associate, she said quietly. He said it like he was proud of it. She told me he was a demanding client, I said. Professional inconvenience. Claire pressed 2 fingers to the bridge of her nose and breathed slowly through her teeth. I feel like an idiot. You're not, I said. We're in the same club. Different entrance, same room. She reassembled the folder with careful movements, like it would fracture if she rushed it. Then she looked at me again. What do you want to do? 2 things. Stop participating in a game I didn't agree to play. And exit it like adults, attorneys, paperwork, no scenes, clean and fair. And then? They can have each other, without lying to anyone. That's the whole ask. She exhaled long and steady. Okay. I called an attorney that afternoon. Calloway. Precise, direct, spoke like someone who measured twice. He took the documents, asked specific questions and said, while this is in motion, don't confront anyone. Don't tip them off. If they sense the floor shifting, things get complicated. Understood. I drove home and put the mask back on. Not the same mask, a more deliberate version. If she stayed late, I didn't ask. If she scrolled through dinner, I cleared the plates and said nothing. The difference now was internal. I had changed my terms, quietly, without announcement. On Wednesday, I moved my finances to a separate account and set the household bills on auto-pay my pareja. Nothing collapsed. The rest of my income stopped flowing into shared space. I signed up for a co-working spot near my studio and started spending my mornings there before opening the bay. I put a code on the safe in the garage and moved my documents to a locked case in my truck. Not hiding, just closing the perimeter. Thursday night, she came home before 10 for the first time in weeks and brought takeout from the place she knew I preferred. I've been neglecting us, she said, sitting across from me. I know that. I know you have, I agreed. I'm sorry. I miss what we are when it's not like this. That's fixable, I said, watching her. What does that mean? It means I'm not working for your attention. If you want back in, you know the way. She reached across the table. I do want in. Show me across weeks, I said. Not just tonight. She pulled back slightly. Mi pareja, you're punishing me. No, I'm protecting what's mine. She regrouped. 1 step at a time. She was warmer for the rest of the meal. I logged it and kept both eyes open. Friday, she was sweet by text. Saturday morning, she made pancakes and announced she'd cleared her afternoon. Let's drive to the coast, just us. Can't, I said, rinsing my plate. I'm backed up at the studio. Sam's been out all week. Her jaw tightened. You always make time when I want to. That used to be true. Book me in advance. I run on a calendar now. She grabbed her keys hard enough to make them ring. Whatever, I'll go see Meg. She was out the door without waiting for a response. I didn't ask when she'd be back. That afternoon, I met Claire at the co-working space, a small glass-walled room the building called a collaboration cube, which felt appropriate. She slid her signed documents across. I slid mine, clean, no ceremony. Two people handling a situation with the minimum necessary drama, which was already more dignity than the people who'd created it had offered. "When do we tell them?" she asked. "Soon, but not as a speech." I had something specific in mind. We chose a restaurant where Laura and I used to go on ordinary Saturdays. Corner booth, soft lighting, tables close enough that the neighboring ones become an audience for anything significant. We'd make a reservation for early evening. Claire would arrive first. I'd join her. At 5 o'clock, I'd text Laura, "Dinner at that place downtown, now." She'd come thinking she was walking into something she could manage. She'd find out what she'd actually walked into. Sunday morning, Laura woke up gentle. She came up behind me while I folded laundry and pressed her forehead between my shoulder blades. "I missed this," she said. "Folding laundry? You know what I mean." "Do I?" I kept folding. "Or do you miss having someone to come home to when you need it?" She stepped back. "That's cruel." "That's specific," I said. "There's a difference." She took a breath. "Let's reset. Dinner tonight. Just us. No phones. 7 o'clock. 7, I agreed. Be here by 6:30. At 4:47, my phone buzzed. Running behind, something came up, probably closer to 8. I looked at the message for a moment, then typed, "Already here. That place downtown. 5 o'clock. "What?" she sent back. "Already where?" I put the phone in my jacket and drove to the restaurant. Claire was in the corner booth. Soft light, steady but pale in the way that comes from a short night and a long 2 days. "Okay?" I asked as I sat down. "Getting there. You?" "Yeah, we ordered coffee and didn't touch it." At 4:59, I sent the same text again. At 5:06, the door opened. She came in already moving, the energy of someone who had been working themselves up on the drive over. She scanned the room, found me, saw Claire. Her posture went rigid. She crossed the floor and stopped at our table. "What is this?" Her voice was low and tight. "Who is she?" I stood up, unhurried. "Laura, this is Claire." I let a beat pass. "She's your lover's wife. We're both filing for divorce." Her mouth opened and closed. The sentence she'd prepared no longer fit the room she was standing in. "What are you talking about?" She reached for the folder on the table. I put my hand on it. Photos, dates, the parking structure on 5th, the hotel exit on Route 12, 2 people at angles that don't need a caption. "Stop," she said. The word had lost most of its weight. "No more stories about Ashley," I said. "You're out of those." Claire looked up at her with a quiet steadiness that cut more than any raised voice. "Marcus told me he was mentoring a junior associate. He brought it up at dinner, unprompted. Said it like he was proud." She paused. "He forgot to mention the rest." Laura's face cycled through several things and landed on outrage because it was the most available cover. "You don't get to be here," she said to Claire. "And yet here I am," Claire replied, as though commenting on the weather. "Sit down," I told Laura, "or don't. But we're not making this into a scene." She stayed standing, jaw set, rage without anywhere to land in a room this public and this witnessed. She glanced at the next table. The couple there had found something deeply absorbing in their water glasses. The server had assessed the situation and retreated. "You ambushed me. I invited you to dinner," I said. I slid a single sheet across the table, the case number, the structure of a clean exit. She picked it up. Her hands weren't entirely steady. She read it once, turned the page, read that too. "This is insane," she whispered. "It's simple," I said. "If you want him, clear your side and go. If you want dignity, sign and we part like adults. Either way, I'm done being the extra in a story I didn't know I was in." The couple at the next table had gone very still. Laura's jaw tightened. "You can't just—" "I can. And I am." "You didn't even ask me." "I asked. Many times. You were busy." I held her eyes. "You told me not to make things into something they weren't. I should have listened to that advice sooner." Claire stood then, smooth and steady. She looked at me across the table. Ready? I looked at Laura one last time. You'll hear from my attorney tomorrow. I stepped back from the table. Take care of yourself. Please don't do this. Her voice had gone private, stripped of performance. I'll end it tonight. I'll cut all contact. I'll prove it. You proved what you needed to prove, I said. The folder tells the rest. Remember that in the description and in the pinned comment you'll find all our supplements, from fitness to health in every sense of the word. I held the door for Claire and we walked out into the early evening together. Two people who had stopped carrying weight that wasn't theirs. We didn't go anywhere dramatic. 3 blocks, a quieter place with small tables and a menu that didn't have opinions about itself. We ordered food like people who'd been running on adrenaline for weeks and had finally been allowed to stop. How are you holding up? I asked. Better than I expected, she said. I thought it would break something. It feels more like setting something down. That's because you've been carrying it a long time. A my pareja have you? We talked about other things. Her work at the architectural firm, her brother's house that needed more work than he'd budgeted for, my studio, and Sam's habit of naming difficult engine jobs after politicians he found disagreeable. Ordinary things, normal weight. The kind of conversation where you're actually in it, not performing being in it. I got home at 9. Laura was on the couch. The folder was open beside her, photographs spread. Her eyes were red. She looked up when I came in. I made a mistake, she said. You made a decision, I replied, repeatedly. A mistake is singular. It's not what you think. Every photo in that folder shows exactly what I think. She stood and moved toward me, hands open. I can fix this. You can fix your own life, I said. Ours is closed. She followed me to the bedroom while I pulled a suitcase from the closet. She stood in the doorway and watched me pack with the efficiency of someone who's done it for road trips and broken plans. You're not serious. Entirely. Where will you go? Not your concern. I moved to the dresser. The bills are on auto draft for the next month. After that, Callaway and your attorney will sort the rest. I'm not leaving you stranded. I'm leaving you responsible. She grabbed my wrist when I moved toward the door. I looked at her hand until she let go. Her last move was the oldest one. She stepped into my path and put her hand against my cheek and used the voice from the first year. Quiet, specific, the frequency she knew my attention had always been tuned to. I know who you are, she said. You're someone who gives people another chance. That's just what you are. I was that person, I said. Tonight I'm finished. I left her in the doorway holding promises that were 12 weeks too late. The apartment I rented was above a commercial unit 2 blocks from my studio. Low ceilings, clean floor, 1 window facing east. I bought a second-hand sofa and a bed that didn't creak and put my name on the mailbox. My life fit in 2 rooms and I found, sitting there on the first evening with a cup of coffee and nothing demanding anything from me, that this was not a loss. It was a reduction to what was actually mine. At work I ran my schedule like I should have always run it. Sam came back from his sick week, looked at me once and said, "You look different." Lighter, I agreed. She finally done? We're done, both of us. He nodded, picked up a wrench, and that was the entire conversation. Sam was efficient like that. Claire texted that Thursday. Paperwork filed. How are you sleeping? Like I'm catching up on a debt, I sent back. You? Like someone with nothing to hide, she replied. Turns out that feels very different. We met for coffee on Friday, at a place neither of us had associations with. She was already there when I arrived. I was starting to understand she arrived early to places and used the time to settle in. She had a dry, precise sense of humor that landed without warning. She pointed out my labeled studio bins visible through the window. I pointed out she'd been repositioning her coffee cup handle for 4 minutes without noticing. She laughed, the real one. We walked 2 blocks after and didn't hold hands. It wasn't romance. It was cleaner than that. The discovery of someone who didn't require any performance from you, which after the previous several months felt like a luxury. Laura tried one last move 3 weeks later. She appeared at my studio on a Wednesday morning with a casserole dish and a smile calibrated to remind me of easier times. "Made your favorite," she said, stepping inside. I nodded toward the posted sign. "No food past the threshold. Liability." "Oh, come on. I'm not joking. What do you need, Laura?" She glanced at Sam, who had become suddenly absorbed in an inventory process at the far end of the bay. "Can we talk?" We said everything that needed saying. "I miss you," she said. And she meant it. I could tell she meant it. That was the complicated part. "I miss the version I thought you were," I said. "But that version wasn't accurate." She blinked, then went hard. "You're being dramatic." "I'm being done," I said, calm enough that Sam stopped his inventory noise. She looked at the open bay doors where the street was visible, where people could see us. She hadn't prepared for a boundary on neutral public ground. She picked up the dish and left. The door closed with a tone I'd come to find satisfying. "Third attempt," Sam said from the back, not turning around. "Fourth," I said. "But who's counting?" "You are," he said. "You always are." The legal mechanics ran their course. She signed what she needed to sign. I transferred what needed transferring. The house sold and the equity split clean. I took a small commercial space with an apartment behind it. She moved to a rental near her office. The night before the movers came to the old house, I drove past it slowly without stopping. What I felt was the ordinary relief of finishing something that had needed finishing. We never raised our voices. We never gave the neighbors a show. Some people read that as evidence nothing was at stake. That's the wrong reading. There was plenty at stake. We just didn't make it anyone else's business. The last time I saw Laura with any intent, we were at the title office signing the final papers. On the way out, she stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Maybe in a year," she said. "We could talk, see where things are. You can remember me," I said, "as the person who didn't chase." Her mouth pressed tight. She nodded. We walked to our respective cars. Claire and I started having dinner on Fridays, then Sundays. It was never announced. It just developed by repetition, the way good things sometimes do. She came to the studio one afternoon and sat on a rolling stool while I worked a carburetor, and we talked about things that had nothing to do with any of this. She brought coffee sometimes and remembered how I took it. I did the same for her. We built, without naming it, a practice of the small attentions, the remembered details, the questions asked because you wanted to know the answers, the quality of being seen specifically, by someone who wasn't keeping score. One Saturday, we drove out of the city to look at a farmhouse she'd had her eye on for months. 40 minutes on a road that straightened out as the city thinned. We walked the property in the afternoon light, peeling paint on the north face, a soft board on the porch step. Outbuildings with a logic that suggested someone had built them with a plan and taken the plan when they left. I stood at the back edge of the property and looked at the house. The sky was going amber at the edges the way it does in autumn when the light works with less. "Well," I said. "Well," she said. "It's a project. It's the right kind," she said. "The kind that's worth finishing." We drove back as the light went dark. She fell asleep against the window somewhere past the first 2 small towns, and I drove the rest without the radio and thought about nothing in particular, which was its own kind of wealth. Word came back the way it always does, through peripheral channels. Marcus and Laura hadn't lasted. He hadn't relocated his habits when he relocated himself. She'd moved apartments twice, taken on more hours than her body could sustain, and put distance between herself and the life that had cost her what it cost her. I don't say that with satisfaction. I say it because it's part of the honest accounting. When you take something that wasn't yours and try to hold it, the bill differs but doesn't disappear. That's not karma. That's just arithmetic. 6 months after signing the final documents, I was standing on the porch of the craftsman I'd bought with money earned the slow and reliable way. My studio had a waiting list. Sam had a raise. My truck ran like something that had been cared for. I'd put in a fire pit in the back and started having people over on Saturdays, and the conversations around it were the kind that happen when you've put something heavy down and realized your hands work better than you remembered. People ask if I hate Laura. I don't. Hate needs maintenance. It needs to be fed. I don't have room for that and wouldn't make room if I did. What I have is a clear accounting. When respect leaves a room, I don't argue with its departure. I pick up my things, my work, my keys, my composure, and I walk out on my own 2 feet. The night she came into that restaurant and tried to make my exit into her entrance, I didn't raise my voice. I set the truth on the table in plain light and let it speak in the tone it had earned. Then I left. Not because the feeling was gone. The feeling had been going slowly, across every locked door and every late night and every Ashley. By the time I set that folder down, I'd already grieved most of it. What remained was the clean administrative work of making it official. Sometimes the cleanest exit is the most honest gift you can give someone. It says, this is what this actually is. And honesty, even when it arrives as a folder on a restaurant table, is more respectful than the alternative. Claire came by last weekend with her niece and a box of old records from the farmhouse basement. We played 3 on the porch in the afternoon. Her niece had a firm opinion about each one. The afternoon went without urgency or destination into itself. Do you ever miss it? Claire asked. Parts of it, I said. I miss believing what I thought we were was real, but the actual version, what it was once I knew? No. When did you know? She asked. Not when you found out. When did you know? Before I was willing to say it, I said. There's a gap between knowing and being ready. I stayed in that gap longer than I should have. My pareja, did I? She said. The record ended. The needle lifted. Her niece came back out with a glass of water and a strong opinion about what we should play next. That's the whole story. No flames, no speeches, no moment where I waited for someone to tell me I'd done the right thing. Just a man who found out what was true, gathered the facts quietly, built a door and walked through it, and discovered that the life that was actually his had been on the other side the whole time. He just had to stop standing in front of what was blocking it. If you made it this far, subscribe. It takes 2 seconds and it helps more than you know. I've picked 2 more for you right on screen. I'll see you in the next one.